Hey guys, welcome to the last day of the 5-day character development challenge. I hope you have been having as much fun with this as I have. We have been talking about personality, and a little bit of character description. And today what I want to focus on is the connection between the reader and the character, which is a little bit more based in time and based in the plot. So this is going to be a tiny bit different, but as always, personality is key towards creating our characters. So this is going to be a lot of fun, but it is also going to wrap up our 5-day character development challenge. So if you guys have enjoyed this, I encourage you to stay to the end and then watch the next video, which will tell you a little bit about how you can keep doing challenges with us if you've enjoyed this one. So as always, subscribe if you guys haven't already, and then when you're ready to dive in, let's grab a cup, cozy up, and let's get to writing. All right, guys, so today we are talking about the reader-character connection, which is exciting because we have touched a little bit on this in other days of the challenge. But today is when we get to specifically focus on how your reader is going to feel about each character and how we build that in the best way possible. Because we've been talking about personalities, but remember we talked about with our 5 friends, none of those personalities are inherently bad or inherently good. When we're talking about the way that they act and react, none of it is necessarily bad or good until you put context around it. And so today we're going to talk about using that context to build the emotion that we want in our reader, which is not always the same as the emotion that we're building in the character. I just want to repeat that one more time. The emotion we're trying to build for the reader is not always the same as the emotion we're building for the character. So what I mean is we could have a character who is joyfully murdering a puppy and having the best time ever. So even though that character is having a blast, our goal is to make the reader hate them. So we are diverging and going different directions with what our characters are feeling and what our readers are feeling. And we really have to put focus on what the reader feels, because that fully determines the experience that they have reading your work. And it absolutely determines what they think of your characters. So let's talk about how we connect your readers to the characters. And there's really 2 ways to do it. The first one is with negative emotions. And the second one, you guessed it, positive emotions. So let me break it down and tell you what I mean by both of these, because what is important with both negative and positive is that we feel something towards the character, but we also want something from that emotion. So what I mean is, if we hate the character, maybe we want to see them grow, or maybe we want to see them taken down and taken out of power. Or if we're angry at somebody else in that character's life, depending on the context, we can have a couple different ways that we want that to resolve. Maybe we want them to make up and make things better, or maybe we want the first character to escape from the second character because they are a really terrible influence on their life. Another negative emotion is that we feel bad about the situation the character is in and we're rooting for it to get better. You know, maybe they have a traumatic past and they're carrying a lot of baggage with them. Or it could be something as easy as they have terrible stage fright, so they're not able to perform in the school play. Or they could be sick or injured and we're rooting for them to get better. In all of these cases, these negative emotions cause us to want something, but it depends largely on the context. Sometimes it's just best for them to escape a bad relationship, but maybe sometimes it's salvageable. You know, in some cases, it could be that if they go to therapy, they can actually work through the problems that they have and get their happily ever after that way. So the really cool thing about building these reader and character connections through negative emotions is that negative emotions are almost totally universally felt. So what I mean is, if you guys have ever watched YouTube videos of road karma, think about the moment when you get cut off in traffic, right? The person almost kills you and then flips you the bird and peels out and leaves you in a cloud of that rubbery, terrible smoke. And then 5 seconds later, you see the cop car dart out and get him. That is such a satisfying feeling to everybody across the board. When you see justice served to somebody who deserved it, universally satisfying. Every reader can connect to that because everybody can get angry at that jerk of a character and then feels good when they get their due. And you know, there's another really classic story. I don't even know if it's real at this point. It's been told so many times, but it's the retail worker who's working at the front desk of whatever shop they're selling clothes at or whatever, and this super rude customer comes in and like pushes them out of the way and is like, I've got an interview to be at. And it turns out the person they just pushed out of the way is the one interviewing them. The satisfaction in that story is when that person gets to tell the really, really rude interviewee that they're the one who's going to be deciding whether they get the job or not. And you get the opportunity to describe the facial expression on that person who was so rude and terrible and now has realized they just really screwed themselves. Everybody from every walk of life can get satisfaction out of that story when it's delivered well. Whereas positive emotions are trickier because while we all universally feel those negative emotions and anger towards jerks and we want to see justice brought to them, with positive emotions, they're much more subjective. So if you're trying to give the reader an enjoyable experience and you're describing a character who is having the best time playing a video game, if you're reaching an audience that doesn't game, it's very, very difficult to get them to enjoy that scene in the way that a gamer would. And it's the same thing if you're trying to use a funny character to get your reader to really enjoy the story. Humor is subjective. And so if your character has a dark sense of humor and your reader really doesn't like that, they're not going to click. The reader is not going to feel the intended connection with that character that you want. Some readers will absolutely enjoy the character who bakes cookies for all the other characters and brings a warm, fuzzy feeling to the table, whereas other readers are gonna love the badass who is out fighting the bad guys and they're just rooting for more blood and gore and they're having the best time with that. This is why positive emotions are trickier to pull off because they're so much more subjective. But by no means is that a reason not to shoot for positive emotions. You just have to be aware it's not going to land with everybody. But one of the things I personally revel in any story is when there is a strong bond of friendship with friends who are loyal and don't turn on each other. I'm talking like Harry Potter. Obviously, you guys know I'm on a Stargate kick. One of my favorite things about that series, at least the first two series, is that the characters always have each other's backs. No matter what horrible situation one of them gets into, you know that their friends will do anything in the world to come and save them. They'll risk their own lives. The loyalty that is shown between those friends is my cup of tea. That is what I love above almost anything else. And I'll just go ahead and give away to you guys how much of a sci-fi nerd I am, because we'll go all the way from Stargate to Star Trek and talk about how Captain Picard, no matter what happens, he will make the most morally ethical decision possible. And even if it seems impossible to do something the right way, he will find the right way to do it. And there's actually something very comforting about that. That is a positive emotion. That is a really great way, not that we're necessarily reading about Captain Picard, but the connection to him as a character is very often filled with a positive emotion. And we know that going into every single circumstance, we can count on him to always do the right thing. But some readers don't like that. Some people would rather have Game of Thrones, where everybody's killing everybody. Everybody has a different preference. So anyways, this is why I'm saying positive emotions are a little bit trickier, but that is not a reason not to do them. So before we jump into our last homework assignment of the 5-day character development challenge, we have a couple of tips that I want to leave you guys with. The first of which is, while you think about what kind of connection you're creating between the reader and the character, think to yourself, what do you want your reader to want for the character? Do they want to see them defeated? Do they want to see them escape their situation? Do they want to just spend more time with them because they enjoy that character so much? What is your reader going to feel and what are they going to want? And then just remember that if you don't establish this emotional connection between the reader and the character, they aren't going to love them. You can't create a character readers will love if there is no emotional connection, if there's no personality. So we want to combine everything that we've gone over during the 5 days of this challenge to create that character who is memorable, who stays with the reader, and who isn't just somebody who gets forgotten. Because emotion is the strongest way to make sure that your reader will remember them and will want to keep reading more books about them in the future. And then as we go into the homework, the big thing that we want to avoid is focusing on the character's emotion more than the reader's, because you have to remember those do not always align. And of course I gave the worst example ever of evil man murdering puppies, but it's oftentimes much more subtle than that too. Of the character is playing chess and having a great time, but your reader could care less. So we want to really focus on what the character is feeling as a separate thing from what your reader feels, because what is important today is the connection between the reader and the character and how they feel towards that character. So it's about time to get started on our homework now, but I just want to say thank you so much for sticking with me through this 5-day character development challenge. I really hope that it's been beneficial to you guys and that it's opened your eyes to looking at these characters maybe in a way that you haven't before. And so I would love to hear in your comments below if you've enjoyed this, if you have any suggestions for future challenges. You guys tell me what it is that you want to learn about, what kind of challenges you would like to take in the future, and we'll see if we can make some of them happen. Now, as always, please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And then if you guys want to stick around, the next video in the sequence is going to be about our 60-day novel writing challenge, which is a very, very similar format. You know, we've got video every day, homework every day, but that one is actually to go from blank page to finished novel in 60 days. So if you want to learn more about that, that is going to be the next video in the sequence. And thank you so much for joining me. I hope that this has been very helpful and that you've learned a lot about your characters during this 5-day character development challenge.